Well, a new ruling that came down on Friday. It's definitely good news for Florida State, but here's the real advantage that FSU has right now against the ACC.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Alex Donno, Locked On Canes, alongside Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. We are Locked On ACC. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making us your first listen and first watch each and every day. We're free on YouTube. We're free wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. On this episode, we will maybe pour some cold water on, a potential sleeper candidate for the ACC Championship because a certain college football analyst does not think they're necessarily for real this year. We will wonder if we'll reveal this name, is the worst quarterback in the ACC heading into next year. But let's start on, Kenton, I guess I would classify this in the win column for Florida State, a ruling from the North Carolina judge. Remember, there are dueling lawsuits happening in North Carolina and Florida. Judge Bledsoe in North Carolina handed down a favorable ruling for the Seminoles. He has issued a stay in the case. Here's from the Associated Press. North Carolina Chief Business Court Judge Louis Bledsoe handed down a ruling Friday that puts a stay on all discovery and further court-related work on the case while Florida State appeals to the North Carolina Supreme Court. The school is appealing Bledsoe's earlier ruling that denied the school's motion to dismiss the case. He said, the judge, under North Carolina law, the longstanding general rule is that an appeal divests the trial court of jurisdiction over a case until the appellate court returns its mandate. The lower court only retains jurisdiction to take action which aids the appeal and to hear motions and grant orders that do not concern the subject matter of the suit and are not affected by the judgment that has been appealed. So that's legalese. Kenton, let me put this in English. I think the advantage that Florida State is gaining here over the ACC is the advantage of timing. Because now this North Carolina lawsuit, which you would figure the judges there will probably be more friendly to the ACC, while Judge Cooper in Florida is clearly more friendly to Florida State, that if now the North Carolina lawsuit is slowing down and screeching to a halt until this appeal goes through to the North Carolina Supreme Court, this gives the case in Florida an opportunity to move forward more quickly. And so Florida State gains that advantage of maybe getting favorable rulings in their home court venue first.
Absolutely. This is the equivalent of Florida State whipping out the time stone from Doctor Strange and working a little magic to turn back the clock on their original case. But in all seriousness, this is absolutely a win for Florida State. There is no way to look at this but a win. But like we said about the win for the ACC, where Florida State had to go back and redo their argument, this is a win in the battle, not a definitive win in the war. We all know that wars are won by winning enough battles, but this is still in the grand calculus of this thing, to quote Dr. Strange again, this could be something that ends up not being super consequential, but this for Florida State is a big deal because, again, you had a moment where it's like, damn it, we had to go back to the drawing board. They're going to get the one up. Their case is going to set precedents, or the lawsuit in which they have home field advantage is going to set precedents for this, that we have to then go back and undo, for them to now be put in the driver's seat of, hey, if you can get everything back off the ground quickly enough, now you're in the driver's seat. Your case takes precedent. Your case is the first. This is absolutely a win for FSU, and anybody interpreting it otherwise is lying to themselves.
So the issue that Florida State is appealing in the North Carolina Supreme Court, because Judge Bledsoe had ruled against them on the idea of sovereign immunity, right? Mm-hmm. Florida State is a state university in Florida, feels that they an arm of a state and a state cannot be sued, hence the sovereign immunity. But Judge Bledsoe's contention and the ACC's contention was that they waived that sovereign immunity when going into business with the ACC and entering the grant of rights. So do they have sovereign immunity in Florida, or do they not? Can they be sued in a different state? I think the issue is, and again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm trying to put this into English. Can they be sued in North Carolina when they have sovereign immunity in Florida? The issue of sovereign immunity is at the forefront here. So, when I think about the end game, Kenton, is again, most people, and this is just a reasonable assumption when it comes to legal process. Most people think that at some point a settlement is, the more likely option here, right? That Florida State and the ACC come to some kind of a settlement that allows Florida State to leave the conference. I think the question is, how much will they have to pay to leave the conference? So the idea, again, if your sovereign immunity gets upheld and if you, gain some advantages within the state of Florida, you could potentially force the ACC to the bargaining table on better terms for you versus better terms for them. Or if a settlement is not on the table, then I guess it's just a race against the clock to see, do you get a ruling from Judge Cooper in Florida or Judge Bledsoe or the Supreme Court in North Carolina first, whichever one of those things happens first. So I guess either way, the timing right now seems to be on FSU's side.
Yeah, and that's something that we could definitely agree on here because, again, the way that these cases are set up, and I hate having to do this, but this is the exact opposite of sport, right? When we talk about sports, it's not about who gets to, especially in college football, it's not about, hey, if you get the ball first, you're guaranteed to win. Like, yes, giving the other team the ball first actually puts you in a better position in college football over time because it's like, well, we know what we got to do now. They got 3. Let's go get 3 at minimum. Or they scored a touchdown. You got all 4 downs, But this is the exact opposite. This is quite literally, hey, whoever gets it done first is likely going to be in the driver's seat because, again, that ruling, the best that whoever is in the losing spot can get is a temporary restraining order against that ruling while whatever higher court is dealing with an appeal in that matter. So, I mean, I'm looking at this thing and I'm saying if the ACC now moves back, if the ACC's North Carolina lawsuit moves back behind Florida State's in Haines County, that's not, is it Hayes or Haynes? Am I pronouncing that wrong?
I thought it was Mecklenburg County.
No, I know Mecklenburg County is the one in North Carolina. I'm talking about the one in Florida. Is it Hayes or Hayes?
Leon County.
Leon. I don't know why I keep calling it Hayes. I don't know why I keep doing that. But anyway, Leon County, be it however this thing works out, if Leon County is moving in front of the Mecklenburg County one, then again, you're in the driver's seat. You have the inside track. Now it's just your job not to fumble this thing. And like you said, the idea of a settlement is there, but I'm going to tell you, and this is my honest to God truth opinion on this. The longer this drags on, the less likely I think a settlement is to be reached because settlements are normally reached early enough to where both sides are like, there's a fair chance I'll lose this. I don't want to take too much of a risk. The deeper you get, the more it's like, wait a minute, we're closer to just winning this thing outright. Why the hell would we settle with you? Be it for whatever side wins. Be it Florida State figuring out, oh, there's a loophole in this thing. We don't have to do it. Be it the ACC finding out, oh, your immunity means nothing in this case. Whichever side it is, if we're looking down from, let's say, 2027, and we're just now getting towards the conclusion of this thing, I am willing to guarantee you, or even if we're talking before 2027, if we look at these cases going 2 years or so, this is something that I'm guaranteeing you sure as the sun rises on the east and sets on the west. No settlement will be reached 2 years from this date unless it's something that is very favorable to the team, to the side that is winning.
Yeah, well, Florida State advantage for right now, but as Kenton pointed out, this thing's far from over. And again, it doesn't sound like it's going to be over by June 30th of this year, Kenton. So again, I'm making plans for our July 1st show. I'm not going to, the ACC is not going to collapse by June 30th. Kenton's going to take his victory lap around the track.
I'm wearing my robe on June 30th. I mean, on July 1st. I'm just letting y'all know now it's coming. Be prepared. I'm wearing the shades. I might have a stogie. Who knows? Because a lot of people told me I was stupid, didn't know no better, and that me and you were being paid by Jim Phillips, which again, Jim, if you paying us, get on the phone. You owe us something. But it seems to me to be that this is not like Judge Mathis. Nobody is going to have allegations of drug use levied against them, and then all of a sudden the case is over. Who could have thunk it, Donno? Who could have thunk it?
Well, when we come back, I think we gotta cape up for the Pitt fans out there because somebody's out there disrespecting your quarterback. Is he the worst in the ACC? We'll break it down when we come back here on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Keep it locked. Folks, if you're hiring for your small business, you know how crucial this stuff is. You want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, only over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Over 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you so much for making this Monday episode of Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. Hey, are you watching Fox Sports and ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. So, Kenton, I like to look at these player and team power rankings quite a bit because it's good clickbait, and these websites tend to update them frequently. So 24/7 Sports updated their ACC quarterback rankings because the ones that they did before spring football, a lot of stuff ended up being wrong, right? Certain guys won quarterback competitions they didn't expect to. So we have a much better idea today. In fact, I think really only one team in the conference, maybe North Carolina, we've talked about might have a bona fide quarterback competition in the fall. I think the other 16 spots in the conference are decided. Here's who they ranked as the dead last in ACC starting quarterbacks this year. Like, where is the justice for Nate Yarnell? So Nate Yarnell won a quarterback competition against Eli Holstein and Christian Volue, the Canadian. I always pronounce his name incorrectly. A lot of people thought Holstein transferring in from Alabama would win the job. Nate Yarnell wins that job, but his prize is being ranked dead last among ACC quarterbacks. I mean, I'm not saying he should be in the top 5, but I think number 17 might be a little bit of disrespect for Nate Yarnell, who I think he's only he played 62 passes thrown last year, 595 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Like, is he chopped liver?
I think that they're doing him unfairly because there are other quarterbacks that we have seen less from. There are quarterbacks that we've seen much less impressive stuff from that we're sitting up here saying, oh, he's got to be better than Nate Yarnell, who I think, me personally, and watching those games last year, I'm going to be very honest with you, okay? I understand that coaches are there every day, and they see stuff that we don't. And with that being said, Narduzzi is there every day. He saw things that we didn't. How you allow Villieu to continue on as your starting quarterback after that Wake Forest game is beyond me. It's beyond me. You slid with the game on the line and you cost us the game when you didn't even have to slide. You could have ran out of bounds standing straight up past the first down yardage and, hey, we won the game. We go ahead and take a couple knees as KD is at the doorstep, which to me, a lot of people won't acknowledge this. I think that game truly set the tone for their season as a whole because that game was in, I believe it was in like late October or something like that. They had plenty of winnable games after that. Don't get me wrong. Not saying that they were going to beat Notre Dame or Florida State. Not saying that. But I'm saying that they could have been seen in a much different light had that not gone that way. But what the hell has Hank Brockmeyer done to make you believe, hey, that's a stud right there? He's going to dominate in Wake Forest in that long mesh offense. Because, again, that offense more than any other, to me, resembles an offense where you need more to understand the timing and rhythm, and you have to be a certain type of athlete to get it done. I have seen nothing from him to say, hey, this kid is absolutely amazing. He's going to be a guy. I went back and watched as much of the Locked On Sunbelt as I could to try to, get a better feel of what's going on down there in Ruston, Louisiana. I went back and said, okay, if he's not named the worst, I've got to see something that impresses me here. Lo and behold, nothing. I don't think that the kid's terrible, but I think that if you're looking at him relative to everybody else in the ACC, if you did all right in a group of 5, how do I not trust that you're going to be performing poorly in the Power 5?
Right. Now, they don't expect Bachmeier to be good. They've got him number 16, so just one spot ahead. Now we were talking off air, and you strongly feel that Ashton Daniels at Stanford, who's number 15, maybe should be ranked even lower, that he could have been the contender to be number 17.
I'd be surprised if Elijah Brown doesn't take that spot from him before the end of the year.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked. I'd be very shocked. And that's with all due respect to Stanford, and that's with all due respect to Mr. Brown. I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked because they're bringing in a 4-star from Mater Dei for plenty of reasons. If you are recruiting in California, if there are any schools that you need to do right by, which we all know, Mater Dei, De La Salle, Long Beach Pop, you don't play with them.
Yeah.
No. If you made a promise to a player from that school, you keep the promise. Because if you don't, you'll get stalled out real quick. And with all due respect, I don't think a kid that's a 4-star is going to Stanford without the thought of, I'm going to be the starter right away. Like, I highly doubt that that's the case. But we could be wrong here. And again, I didn't see anything from him last year either. At least with Cal's quarterback, you saw glimpses. You saw flashes where you're like, there's promise. He may make the stupid mistake here and there, but there's promise here. There's something here. Stanford, on the other hand, hey, listen, we're just, everybody says being an armchair quarterback is easy. Well, I'm going to tell you this much. There are guys who make being an ACC or a Pac-12 quarterback look easy, and he wasn't one of them. He was not one of those guys.
All right, so let me give you the rest of the list and tell me if you have any disagreements here from 14 up to number 1. So I think this might be a little low for Anthony Calandria. They've got him at 14 from Virginia. Malik Murphy at Duke, number 13. I know some people might say that's a little too low because coming out of Texas, he had some hype. I think that might be about right for him, though.
I think that's right.
Fernando Mendoza at Cal, who you just mentioned, number 12. Max Johnson at UNC, 11. We're not even sure if he's going to be the starter there. Thomas Castellanos at Boston College, number 10. Kyle McCord, Syracuse, number 9. Tyler Shuck, Louisville, number 8. Cade Klubnik at Clemson, 7. Preston Stone at SMU, number 6. Kyron Drones, Virginia Tech, number 5. Haynes King, Georgia Tech, number 4. Grayson McCall, NC State, number 3. DJ Uiagalelei, Florida State, number 2. And Cam Ward at number 1. I mentioned, I think there's a couple in there that might be ranked a little higher, too low. Like Kyle McCord at number 9. I mean, I get it. Like, he came from Ohio State, but he wasn't good at Ohio State with all those weapons there, by the way.
The Ohio State boost is incredible. I think that kid is the pits. I don't see how you could put him out of the bottom third of this group. And there's a quarterback in here that I don't understand how they got this ranking for him. Thomas Castellanos at 10?
Whoa. Yeah.
Did you watch the games?
Yeah.
Boston
he was like the only good thing about that team.
They had nothing. I'm watching their offense like, okay, if I'm an opposing team, whatever scheme you're running, if you have any safeties over the top, you have too many. If you are running cover 1, too many safeties over the top. You do not need a safety over the top against this team. What you need to do is have multiple guys say, hey, you're the spot on the right side, you're the spot on the left side. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's too much to dedicate to one player. If you watch them play, I'll give you a prime example. Did you watch the Boston College Army game?
I don't think I watched that specific game, no.
Okay. I did, and I'm here to tell you right now, if Army simply said, not only are we going to load the box, we're going to load the box, and we want our 2 safeties to keep their eyes on him, they would have won that game, period. All of their points, literally every single touchdown they scored, I believe, was on a rushing touchdown from Castellanos at the end of the game. Every single one of them.
Jeez.
This is not a situation where it's like, oh, and by the way, some of those weren't even option plays. Some of them were straight power, QB blast, things of that sort, where it was like, our running back will do much more help as a blocker than if we fake the ball to him to eat a defender, quote unquote, per se. So to me, having Thomas Castellanos at 10, when he carried that team to a bowl game, a team that lost to NIU, a team that didn't look great against Holy Cross, a team that had they started him against NIU, they probably win. That guy as your 10th, what are we watching? What film do we have that says he's behind these 9 guys?
And when he got on the map for me was he played so well against Florida State, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
he did.
The team that went 13-0 regular season, won the conference, even though by the time they had to win the conference, they were down to their 3rd quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Castellanos, I mean, if he had a decent supporting cast and if his head coach didn't have his head up as you know what, and they had like, I don't know how many 20-some penalties in that game, he might have pulled off that upset against FSU. He played really well in that game. So I'm a fan. You know, and any disagreement with the top 3? I mean, Cam Ward at number 1, DJU at number 2, your guy Grayson McCall at number 3. I don't know. There's a no doubt DJ Uyunglele has a tremendous supporting cast. I'm not sure if he's actually like top 2 but he is experienced. He might be. Maybe I judge him too much on what he did at Clemson, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I think maybe 2 might be a little high.
So if we're looking at this based on what I believe you will be next year, I could maybe see flopping 3 and 2. But honestly, with the quarterback crop that we have currently in ACC, it's like bizarro world when you look back a few years ago when you had every team in the top 6 had these established quarterbacks that had multiple seasons of playing well under their belt. Now we're at a situation where half of these teams, this guy is year 1. This is his first time taking the full reins. So even in terms of the top 3, I'm not super upset about it. All 3 of these are transfer guys. There's a lot of projection for how they'll fit into the new system and all that. I'm fine with leaving McCall at 3. If you want to put him 2, I'm fine. You know, same thing with Cam Ward. I'll say this though: there are certain parts of this list that don't necessarily add up, and it's outside the top 3. Like if you're going to say, "Hey, we expect Cam Ward to get his turnover problem together and fit into this system well," how do you then say because of upside, Cam Ward is number 1? But upside doesn't push Calandria in front of certain other quarterbacks that we know their ceiling is well below his. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, we could tear this list apart all day. I think that there are some things that are a little odd about it, but all in all, the top 3 in particular, I think it's fairly accurate.
When we come back, is Virginia Tech, let's say a dark horse candidate? Are they a dark horse candidate in the ACC? Greg McElroy doesn't think so. We'll talk about it here on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Keep it locked. By the way, football's going to be here before we know it. But before we have all those games to bet on, and you know, you can already bet on win totals, conference championship odds, all that good stuff. But folks, it is win or go home time in the NBA and NHL. Winner take all in those leagues right now in the playoffs. And FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers at FanDuel get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. We got Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. So, Kenton, when I found this story on a Clemson blog of all places, I thought this is something worth talking about because you and I both feel like Virginia Tech is probably flying under the radar a little bit. You know, we have talked about, you've brought up the concerns about the size of their defensive linemen. They may not be quite big enough to really contend. Yeah, I could see them as being like a dark horse team that could maybe, you know, win 8-9 games. The prospects of the Hokies being an ACC contender was brought up to Greg McElroy, ESPN analyst, on his Always College Football show. I actually found this story at the Clemson Insider. Shout out, I guess the Clemson Insider covers every team in the conference. So these are my kind of guys here. So McElroy discussed the likelihood of Virginia Tech competing for an ACC title. He said it's a 5 out of 10 on the probability scale. Now, people are going to push back, he said, and this is not at all disrespectful to Virginia Tech. I love the returning production. I love the quality of play that they get at the quarterback spot with drones. I love all the pieces back that are now in year 3 in Brent Pry's system. I believe that there's going to be significant growth in their program's future. But he said the problem is I look at the top of the ACC and I think it's really, really talented and really, really good. Now, can they knock off the likes of Clemson, Miami, and Florida State? Those would be the top 3 dogs in the ACC in my eyes, he said. Can they knock those teams off? Sure, but what's the likelihood they do that multiple times this season? So I think that's a pretty sensible assessment for Brent Pry's team heading into his 3rd year.
You know, the biggest argument for Virginia Tech is, hey, they're returning a ton of production, right? The most production returning in the nation with, I believe, 86% of their statistical production from last year coming back. I'm with you. I get it. And I'm a guy that's very high on Virginia Tech, especially with their schedule shaping up the way it does. I think that that's a very, very solid schedule for them to where, even some of their tougher games, you're going to see them at home. Like, I think Miami is the only true road game you have that's like, that's going to be tough. Other than that, you got Virginia at home. So I think that their schedule matches up very favorably for them, and that's something that we don't talk about enough. And the biggest thing for me is this. I talk about their run defense a lot. I talk about how light in the behind they are a lot. They didn't do much to get a lot heavier up front. They got guys who are better at their system, which is that smaller, a lot of movement, all that type of system. My thing is this. They were in the middle of the road in terms of the ACC in stopping the run last year. They were 54th in the nation overall in rushing defense last year. So I get the argument against them. But for me, it's tough to say 5 out of 10 that they show up and do good things here. I mean, I'm really and truly struggling, and Donno's got the schedule up here. This schedule is one that's ripe to do something like what, let's say, an Iowa did last year, where you can get 10 wins without beating a single ranked team. Like, right. Without beating a single ranked team, you beat Vanderbilt, Marshall, Old Dominion, Rutgers, Stanford, BC, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, Duke, Virginia. That's 10 right there. None of those teams will likely be ranked throughout this season.
Yeah, you're right, because I'm looking through this, and like the only ones you can look at and say on paper like these are really tough games are at Miami and home against Clemson. Not saying they win all the other 10, but they're going to have a good chance to win all the other 10, Kenton.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. A lot of people like to look at a team and they say, well, their record's going to be this based off who they are. There are a lot of factors that go into it. Like you said, with this schedule, who wants to play in Nashville? What a tough time it is to travel down to Vanderbilt. Those boys keep Tennessee rocking. Ooh, oh boy, Marshall's coming to tell you. You get what I'm saying? Like, to me, I understand the idea that they lack certain pieces to make them a team that you say, hey, them going to the ACC Championship and winning, yeah, go ahead and throw that out the door. But them going is a possibility that we ought not ignore, because while I don't think they're mature enough to win all 10 of the other games, if things fall right for them and the teams that are in front of them wet the bed in certain games, they could easily find themselves either there or on the brink of a ACC Championship bid. Again, beating a bunch of teams that I don't think will be, powerhouses. The Fighting Greg Schianos don't scare me. With all due respect to Rutgers, they just don't scare me. So looking up and down that schedule, would I be shocked if they only won 6 or 7 games? Not really. Would I be shocked if they won 9, 8? Also, not really. The only thing that would shock me is 10 plus. Then I'd be like, they got every drop they could out of that roster. They got they squoze that lemon for everything they get. I'd be on the same side of the fence for 5 and 7. At that point, Price got to go. Because with that roster, that quarterback, that running back, you cannot tell me that you can only squeeze 5 wins out of that against that schedule.
Well, it's always a good time when we can talk some ACC with you guys. If you're watching the video version on YouTube, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to Locked On ACC. If you listen to the audio version, Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your pods. He is Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. We'll talk to you again tomorrow on another episode of Locked On ACC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.